Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 AP English, the Roberts Lectures. We are in the poetry section, and now we turn to Gerard Manley Hopkins' Spring, his 1877 offering. Of course, Hopkins is one of our heroes in 303, his Spring and Fall. To a Young Girl, we've given obviously lectures, as well as God's Grandeur and Pied Beauty. 1844 to 1889 are his dates. He is a great English poet, but most importantly, he's a Jesuit priest and one of the great Victorian poets of all time. He loved, of course, the manipulation of sprung rhythm, and we've spoken about this elsewhere. Let's just enjoy this poem in the spring. This is a great, great poem to read, and of course we'll be reminded of that final line of Shelley's Ode to the West Wind, "If winter come, can spring be far behind?" It will be a poem like this that will remind us what it is we long for when we long for spring. Let's just enjoy the poem.
Nothing is so beautiful as spring, when weeds and wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. Thrush's eggs look little, low heavens, and thrush through the echoing timber does so rinse and ring the air. It strikes like lightnings to hear him sing, the glassy pear tree leaves and blooms. They brush the descending blue. That blue is all in a rush with richness. The racing lambs too have fared their fling. What is all this juice and all this joy? A strain of the earth's sweet being in the beginning in Eden garden. Have, get, before it cloy. Before it cloud, Christ, Lord, and sour with sinning. Innocent mind, and May-Day in girl and boy. Most, O maid's child, thy choice and worthy, the winning.
All right, let's turn to this poem. Now, this is a fascinating little poem. Let's point out it does two things for your notes. One, obviously it celebrates the spring. In the first stanza, how amazing spring is. And we immediately have to think of 3A of Chaucer's opening lines of the general prologue when he as well celebrates the springtime. Also, put a note to yourself at 2B. Notice how all of the senses, 5 senses, what you can see, what you can taste, smell, touch, etc., are all being elicited here. But then the second part of the poem makes it more interesting. The rhetorical question, what is all this juice, all this joy? In other words, what is the spring? Notice he begins by calling it a strain. Earlier it was a ring, right, at line 5. Now it's a strain of the earth's sweet being in the beginning in Eden's garden. In other words, the spring reminds us of the Eden story, where before Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden, go back to our Milton lecture, of course, in Paradise Lost at LearnStrong.net, everything was great. Paradise, right? To be encircled, to be encircled in a garden that is perfect in every way. That's what it was before. He says, have got. That's what spring is. Before it cloy, that is to say before it's ruined. Before it cloud, Christ, Lord, and sour with sinning, innocent mind and May-Day. In other words, Hopkins is going to point out for us the tendency that humans have, the proclivity that we have to destroy our Eden. And of course, we think of Voltaire's Candide there in El Dorado, and then he has to leave. In other words, we can be in the perfect place, and then we have to leave, only to discover at the end of Candide that we have to cultivate our own, what is it? Garden. We're back, of course, to this notion as well. At 2A, obviously, spring is the great reminder of innocence. It's also the great reminder of how innocence can be lost. We think of Blake's Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience at 3A. At 2B, obviously, all the sounds of spring will concentrate on that. The poem is a fun poem to read aloud for that reason. At 3A, I mentioned Chaucer, I mentioned Milton. Of course, our transcendentalists come to mind. Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, Dickinson, all come to mind as well. Finally, at 3B, what is your favorite time of the year, and in what ways do you think of spring as innocent, and then reminded that, in fact, often innocence can be lost tragically? we think again of Blake's Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, and we ask, of course, back then, which is more important, to have innocence or to have experience and knowledge, and how they obviously go together. I hope our study of this little poem will lead you to more studies of the great Hopkins. Truly amazing poet. Thank you.